In terms of the patients, this morning we do have 9 patients here at Scott and White. 3 of them remain in critical condition. We have 5 others. 2 of those are what I would consider fair condition, and the remainder are in good condition. There is a possibility that several of them may actually be discharged from the hospital today. Some of those are fortunate to have minor injuries and will not require further hospitalization or procedures at this time. The ones who are awake and talking are in good spirits. I've visited with each of them this morning and their families that have made it to the bedside. We have been able to contact all family members for each of the, or have been able to contact family members for each of the patients who are here, and so that has been a good thing to be able to accomplish this morning. Again, they're in good spirits. We've had some good discussions this morning. At this point, that's kind of what I had prepared. I'm happy to try to answer any questions that you guys may have.
You kind of describe the injuries you're looking at now for the critical patients.
Sure. So our critical patients have, specifically, they have some injuries to the neck. We have a potential spine injury, and we also have an abdominal injury. Those are the 3 patients that I would still consider in critical condition. Sure. So there were several that were, again, superficial kind of grazing type injuries that glanced off body cavities, and maybe through the muscle of an arm. We also had some, as I mentioned earlier today, some shrapnel type injuries from bullet impact on structures that were nearby that caused some mild facial injuries. So those are kind of just some examples of the patients who may be released later today.
Last night you had mentioned there were 3 patients on ventilators.
Correct.
Are they still on ventilators?
They are currently still on ventilator, yes.
Doctor, you said by now you've reached all of the family members. Some of them following the news reports and had difficulty getting a hold of their loved ones, so they thought they might be a victim in this case, or were they surprised and did not expect that phone call from you guys?
Chaplain Smith may have some more information on that. The ones that I talked to had previously been contacted, I think, by the Army for the most part. One of the challenges we had was just identifying people when they got here, because as you can imagine, they didn't necessarily have their IDs on them anymore. They were evaluated at the Army hospital, some of them preliminarily, and so some of that gets removed and they get assigned a trauma number. So when they got here, it was the job of kind of coordinating with Darnell and understanding exactly the identity of these folks whenever we got them.
Well, so I will speak to what we're looking at with the patients that we're caring for right now. As you heard from Dr. Davis, these people are often critically ill, so being able to address complex emotional responses to this really takes some bit of time. I don't know, I have not visited with any of these servicemen. Many of them have come back and had combat experience, so you're imagining they're getting into a safe place and seeing family and now having this kind of violence brought about at their home. So the likelihood that somebody would have a difficult emotional response to that is high. And so our job is going to be, as they get well, provide services and support and work closely with Fort Hood so that they can get the kind of attention that they need emotionally early on. So we really work closely with the surgical team around when somebody's ready and able to talk about things, and start working closely with Fort Hood to align those services. But yes, it's a critical issue that we have to address and address early, but only when somebody's well enough and physically comfortable enough to do that.
This spinal injury, was it the result of a gunshot wound, or was it from something else that may have happened? And if so, can you tell us what may have happened to that person?
It is a result of a gunshot wound.
Dr. Davis, this might be fairly obvious at this point, but just to confirm, it sounds like all these patients are generally out of the woods. You're not expecting any more fatalities.
We do not expect any more fatalities at this point. I believe that our patients are still under some significant physiologic stress. We have a lot of work to do in the operating room, as well as in the time to come. You know, this is just the beginning of the process, really. Trauma is a continuum of care, and it starts in the field with the medics and continues through the ED, to the OR, to the ICU, and then on to rehab. So there's a tremendous amount of work left to be done for a lot of these patients. I would say that in terms of life-threatening events, right now I feel pretty good for our patients. But we still have some time to go before I'm going to declare them completely out of the woods.
Please understand, many of our staff, and this is why it hits home to us, many of our staff have spouses or family members who are posted at Fort Hood, who are in the military. And so when tragedy happens to them, we feel it, and when we hear about it early. In the modern days electronic texting, et cetera, we start hearing information very early in the course. So what we do is we rapidly assess what the situation is, determine how many patients we are going to get, and then make a decision to open up what we call our command center. That sends out multiple alerts the necessary providers, both physician, nurses, and other ancillary care members. And so they're notified both electronically, by phone calls, and basically what they hear across the media, and if they have loved ones on base. And what happens? What happens here always? When we face a crisis, when our community is challenged, we raise to the occasion. And so everybody starts coming in.
You know, the men and women who protect our country are exceptional people. However, they're put in circumstances that are often not understandable. And so even once physical wounds are managed, the wounds that are deeper, that are psychological, are there. It's something that we're continuing to see and really cast more light on in this country. So, you know, post-traumatic stress disorder, it's very common. It's very common in active duty servicemen and people who are now veterans. So it's just a critical issue that we have to address.
From my standpoint, again, I can't tell you how honorable it is to have the opportunity to care for our military. It's a very unfortunate circumstance, but it's incredibly humbling to see how they conduct themselves. Even in the face of such injuries, they conduct themselves with the highest level of professionalism and stature. It's something we all need to be very proud of as our military.